A photo, a bullet, and a whisper caught on tape. That's all it took to finally crack one of America's most haunting and heartbreaking mysteries. But even after a conviction, so many questions still linger in the small town of Delphi, Indiana. Let's rewind to February 13th, 2017. Two best friends, 14-year-old German and 13-year-old Abigail Williams, set out for a day of adventure, hiking the historic Monon High Bridge Trail. They were just kids, enjoying a day off from school. They snapped photos, shared laughs, and documented their day, just like any teenager would. But they never came home. Their disappearance sparked a desperate 6-year search that shattered the hearts of their families and an entire community. It was a case that went ice cold, fueling a nationwide manhunt and endless speculation. Then, 3 key clues emerged from the shadows, pointing directly at one man, a local resident named Richard Allen. Tonight, we're going to retrace the trail of those clues, the critical pieces of evidence that turned this cold case red hot. We'll uncover how a single ordinary cell phone allowed 2 brave girls to speak from beyond the grave and bring their killer to justice. Our first clue isn't a piece of physical evidence in the traditional sense. It's a moment, frozen in memory and captured in a digital snapshot. Shortly after the girls were reported missing, investigators released a grainy, blurry photo. It was taken by Libby German on her cell phone, and it showed a man walking towards them on the old rickety bridge. He was wearing a dark jacket, blue jeans, and had his hands shoved in his pockets. This image became the face of the investigation, a ghostly figure known only as Bridge Guy. Police received thousands of tips, but the man's identity remained a mystery. Around the same time, a witness came forward, telling investigators they had seen a man matching that exact description walking alone near the bridge that same afternoon. Here's where it gets chilling. When detectives first questioned Richard Allen back in 2017, just a few weeks after the murders, he admitted something crucial. He told them he was there that day, on that very trail, near the bridge. His reason? He said he was just watching the fish. He was let go, and for 5 long years, his name faded into the background. But that simple admission, that he was on the bridge at the same time as Abby and Libby, would become the anchor for the timeline that eventually brought him right back into the center of the investigation. Now for our second clue, the one that spoke volumes without ever making a sound. Near the location where the bodies of Libby and Abby were tragically discovered, investigators found something small but significant. An unspent .40 caliber cartridge. It hadn't been fired. It had likely been ejected from a handgun when the killer cycled the weapon. For years, its origin was unknown. Then, in 2022, a breakthrough. Ballistics experts were able to link that single round to a specific firearm, a Sig Sauer P226 handgun. And who owned that gun? Richard Allen. He had owned it since the early 2000s. The experts testified that the unique marks left on the cartridge by the gun's ejector and extractor mechanism were a match. Think of it like a fingerprint, but etched in metal. It was a direct link between an object found at the crime scene and a weapon owned by the suspect. What's more, Allen had never reported the weapon stolen. In fact, when police finally searched his home in 2022, the gun was still there. He was still in possession of it. The defense team fought hard against this forensic evidence, arguing that the toolmark analysis wasn't an exact science and the match was inconclusive. But for the prosecution, and ultimately for the jury, that single silent bullet became a powerful witness, connecting Richard Allen directly to the scene where the girls lost their lives. And that brings us to the third and perhaps most chilling clue of all, the words that everyone heard. While Richard Allen was in custody awaiting trial, his conversations were being recorded. On a series of jailhouse phone calls with his wife, he was captured saying things that prosecutors described as clear-cut confessions. In recordings played for the court, Allen's voice could be heard saying, "I did it," and "I killed Abby and Libby." It was a bombshell moment in the case. The prosecution presented these statements as voluntary, clear, and damning admissions of guilt. However, the defense painted a very different picture. They argued that Alan was suffering from severe mental and emotional distress. They claimed he was being held in isolating conditions, was under extreme psychological pressure, and that his statements were nothing more than the incoherent ramblings of a man whose mind was deteriorating. They argued he was being coerced and was not in his right mind. But the jury heard his voice. They listened to the recordings. And in their eyes, his words were the final, undeniable piece that locked the puzzle together. So there you have it. 3 pivotal clues that transformed years of whispers and speculation into a final verdict. A haunting photo captured on a victim's phone, a single bullet that never fired but told a story, and a series of confessions recorded from behind bars. In December of 2024, after a long and emotional trial, Richard Allen was convicted of the murders of Libby, German and Abigail Williams. He was sentenced to 130 years in prison, ensuring he would never walk free again. But even with a conviction, the story doesn't end there for many in Delphi. The debate over the evidence continues to divide the community and legal experts alike. Was it a case built on ironclad forensics and a clear confession? Or was it a conviction based on a collection of circumstantial coincidences and the words of a mentally unwell man? The appeals process is just beginning, and only time will tell what happens next. What is absolutely certain, though, is the incredible bravery of Libby and Abby. In their final moments, Libby had the presence of mind to use her phone, not just to capture an image, but also to record a voice that ordered the girls down the hill. Those actions, that quick thinking under unimaginable fear, were instrumental. They turned a simple cell phone into a powerful tool for proof, and their courage transformed silence into a resounding call for justice. If this story moved you, and you want to see more deep dives into real cases and stories of justice that refuse to fade, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching. Because some voices, like those of Abby and Libby, deserve to be heard forever.